All right, seeding the pastures. We got Carlos on the tractor, opening up the soil for us. He's got the spring tooth harrow.
I just wanted to cut in here and describe a bit of background in case anyone's new here. This field is being planted sort of Mark Shepard style. Mark Shepard, who's sort of a permaculture all-star, what he did on his property is he would have alleys, and on either side of those alleys would be a swale. And he would till up the alleys and plant annual crops, cucumbers and squash and what have you. And he would use those annual crops to cash flow while he was waiting for his perennial crops to get up to producing age. In our case, the crop that we're producing is lamb and goat meat, and so I'm opening up the soil. I'm not really tilling here. This is just a very light raking to open up the soil so that I can seed it with a diverse cover crop mix, and then I'll bring the goats and sheep through here later in the season once this stand has grown out, and I'll be rotating them through these alleys to, again, cash flow Mark Shepard style until the trees are large enough to produce, with the ultimate goal being that once the trees are established and are highly productive, then they'll serve as a late summer and fall counterbalance to the pasture. The pasture dries up and is highly unproductive from June through January, basically. And so the trees will be lush, green, and productive, and they'll produce not only high-protein fodder, leaf fodder, but they'll also produce fruit and nuts that are highly nutritious and calorie-dense that the animals can use to supplement their diets later in the season.
So I've got it going down about 1.5 inches. I don't want to go too deep because I don't want to disrupt the soil too much. So 1.5 inches just to give some little furrows. And then I'll come back over with the spring tooth, and also I've got a drag harrow, and I'll cover the seed back over. Then we've got a big rain event starting tonight going into Tuesday. It's going to be a 3-day rain event, and I'll use that to compact the soil around the seed to get good seed to soil contact. Got Ruben spreading seed. I'm spreading seed as well. It's a mix of, we got sunflower, barley, oats, daikon radish, ryegrass, perennial rye, and fodder beet. And I think that's it. So really, really nice, diverse mix. There's no legumes in it, unfortunately. So I'm just kind of missing out on my legume this year, but my money would be on rain. If we get rain, we'll have a good cover crop regardless of the nitrogen scenario. So this is part of the idea behind seeding daikon radish. We have quite a few worms during the winter when it's nice and cool and rainy and moist. And so the daikon radish, that'll penetrate pretty deep down into the soil. And then what happens is the worms come in. After the daikon dies, the worms come in, they'll eat down the radish. And basically wherever that radish was, you'll have a big deposit of worm castings. Brought the animals over because they don't have shelter in their other pasture. They just have some trees that they can hang out underneath. But I wanted to bring them over here because I've got these goat shelters that'll be really nice in the rain to keep them dry. And so they're enjoying lots of fresh green grass, lots of happy goats and sheep. Beautiful, beautiful animals. I just love all my animals. They're just gorgeous. So the goal will be let this grow out over the winter and spring. Keep the animals off it as much as I can because I want it to grow out to a nice full stand. And so I'm actually going to be moving their shelters into the other paddocks. And so right now, I haven't moved their shelter, but a big storm is coming, about 3 inches of rain. That's huge for California standards. And so I'm just moving them into this pasture so they have access to those shelters, and then I'll move them to the other pasture, to the other paddocks. Okay, getting started with the planting process. So I've laid out black locust, mulberry, chestnut, black locust, mulberry, chestnut all the way down, so it repeats that pattern. So we'll have these strips of trees all the way down like you're seeing here, and once they grow out, it'll be kind of a perpetual food forest for the animals.
Throughout the field, I applied 2 different types of mycorrhizal inoculum to various trees. I set it up as kind of a randomized experiment where a third of the trees got the brand name Mycos, another third of the trees got the brand name Green Grow, and another third of the trees didn't have any treatment, just as sort of a control. And I assigned the trees at random, and then I had some documents that I used during the planting to remind me which trees were going to receive which treatment based on the randomization that I did on a computer.
Okay, so this first hole we're doing the Green Grow mycorrhizal fungus inoculum. We do 1 tablespoon, so my daughter's doing 3 teaspoons because she's working on her measurement right now. Sandy. Okay, so here's our very first tree that we're planting here. It's a black locust. And we've done 1 tablespoon of the Green Grow mycorrhizal inoculum in the bottom, which is what the instructions say.
I thought you would spread apart the roots, Daddy.
The roots looked pretty good. I don't think I need to spread them out. They weren't spiraled.
Okay.
If the roots are spiraled around, then you want to spread them out, but those roots didn't look spiraled. They looked
Okay.
nice and healthy.
Oh, look, there are worms. You're so
Yep.
cute, little wormy.
All right, there's 2. So using these grow bags has been a bit of an experiment for me. I was told that they would basically have an air pruning effect, that once the roots reached the edge of the bag, that they would self-prune. And that appears to be what's happened. So you can see here there's no spiraling of the roots anywhere. The roots don't appear to be like you see in a pot. The roots don't appear to be, hitting the side and then spiraling around it. So this, by contrast, is what it looks like when you have a plastic pot. You can see lots of root spiraling. And it's not directly comparable because one of these was a chestnut and the other was a mulberry. But you can definitely see a difference, at least in the roots. That might be partly because of the root pruning effect, air pruning effect. So the way I'm planting these is I'm planting them a couple feet off the swale. And the idea there is that I want to be able to bring the tractor through here periodically to clean out these swales if I choose to. So if I have the trees right up against the berm there, then I won't be able to get the tractor through. And so planting them a little bit down, and that way I have a nice little gap there for the tractor tires to clean out the swales if need be. Okay, so here's the update. I've planted the trees, and I did that for each of these 5 rows. So there's this row here, the swale, right? Then this swale here, there, and then one all the way at the back. I will be doing some further down the hill as well, down there. I didn't want to go that far down without knowing how the swales were going to handle rain. And so now I've got a pretty clear picture of how well the swales handle rain. And so I feel confident that I can put more swales down there. So that'll be more trees that I get to plant. And then I've got drip tape set up. So I have this one main line, goes down along the outside edge of the swales. And then I've got these tees that tee off. These are as large as possible to sort of maximize the amount of flow that you can get through this tee. You'll see here this channel that connects these 2 pieces of the tube. It's nice and wide. Same thing here. This channel is nice and wide. So it was really important to me that I sort of maximize the amount of flow that I can get because as the water's coming down this main line here, you get a lot of friction. And so the further down you go, the more friction you encounter. And the more friction you have, the harder it is to push water through that channel. So in addition to getting all the way down this pretty lengthy stretch of tubing here, it also has to get all the way to the end of this drip line. So it goes all the way across that field. So basically any amount that you can minimize the friction along the way is going to be super important and super helpful in getting the water to end up where it needs to go and flow at a decent rate. So nice little T there, and then I've got on each of these drip lines another one of those T's. And then anywhere that I had a leak, or that maybe there was a puncture where I had a drip line or whatever teeing into this, I went ahead and I swapped it out. You know, I cut the pipe and installed one of these couplers here so that there's pretty much no leakage throughout this whole system. And if there was any leakage, then I made sure to swap it out, you know, cut that part out, swap it out with one of these couplers to make sure I maintain every bit of water pressure that I can. I then went through and made sure that the drip line was as close to the trees as I could get to make sure that the trees are getting water pretty much directly on their roots, which is important now at this very small stage because they're just these tiny little trees. And so I wanted to make sure that they're actually getting water where they need it. And then over time, that's going to be a lot less important. And the drip line can kind of be a little bit more free and kind of move around a little bit. But that is one little bit of maintenance that I'm doing, is just making sure that these are right up against the tree to make sure the tree is getting the water it needs. A mulberry drip line. So yeah, hopefully that was interesting, gives you some ideas, and good luck on your projects.